Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. In this fourth episode with my interview with Jonny Clark, the National Director of YWAM in Ireland, he talks about a documentary he's been making over this last year called The Guardians of the Flame. Kind of touched on the film, which is it's the Guardians of the Flame, which is a brilliant title, and the film is actually really lovely. You premiered it this kind of week, and the Clonard sort of is in there as well. But some of the sadder stories in your documentary are Eugene Greevy and his family. What happened to his family? How did you get to meet Eugene?
That was through Tommy Sands. Tommy Sands is for those of you who don't know, is a well-known Irish folk musician, and he lives here in Rostrevor, and we've become good friends with him and his extended family. And Tommy also has a very strong passion for peacemaking and reconciliation of years, really. He's written songs about the Troubles, and songs of real reconciliation and peace, you know. But he also runs an event called the Music of Healing every July at the end of the Fiddler's Green Folk Festival here in Rostrevor, and actually starting to do Music of Healing events more often now. So the Music of Healing events, he invites usually differing people from different sides to come together and talk, interspersed with music and songs and from all different kinds of people. So it's a night of creativity. Well, he really feels like music and art has the potential to really sometimes give voice to some of our innermost kind of senses, and music can really be used as in a healing way, where if we just try to speak words, it would kind of fall short. But you sing a song, you write a poem, it somehow gets deeper. I remember Australian writer John Smith said, "Art is the nerve ending of society," you know. And I think the Music of Healing events have a knack of touching somehow that nerve ending of our society and going a bit deeper than just an event where you just sit around and chat, you know. So he had Eugene Greevy come to one of his events, and he had different people, and I remember just listening to Eugene's story and just being really struck by it in many ways. You know, it was the events of Eugene's three brothers were killed in cold blood in 1976 in Whitecross, which is a very small, tiny little cluster of houses, really, village in South Armagh. And it was in the 70s. It was when I was 1 year old at the time, so it was before I knew anything about anything in the world, let alone knew anything about Northern Ireland. I didn't move here until 1984. So the events that Eugene described were before I had lived here. They were a long time ago. They were from South Armagh, which is a part of the world I didn't really know very well. And so when I heard Eugene's story, this just a real salt of the earth kind of guy, down to earth man, just unpacking the scandalous story of how his three brothers were just watching celebrity squares in their living room, and what turns out to be agents of the British state, came in and shot them in cold blood under the guise of being loyalist paramilitaries. What he's now realizing is it was a whole bunch of sordid collusion involved in their killings, and others like them at that time. It was a leveling up of scores, you know, and that's very sad.
Recently we got some files from the MOD in London. We've been looking for these files for over 40 years, and we couldn't get them. When anybody went to look about the Greevy brothers, there was nothing, only a redacted black thing. And if you were a student or a researcher, you would never know that there was anybody shot called the Greevy brothers. But I was reading them to Seamus, and at one stage the military intelligence is sitting around a table and they're saying, we need to stop this willy-nilly shooting of Catholics. First of all, we need to target them, and then we need to go and shoot just known Republicans or known IRA haunts or whatever. And he said that the score was 11-3. and that they would have to go and shoot large numbers of Catholic families for the even the score, just as what James is after saying.
As we were making the film, including Eugene's story, you know, there was a temptation to go, maybe we should just keep that stuff out, you know, just stick to, you know, the human story of loss. But I think the more I dwelt on it, the more you realize that kind of story is important to be told, because it's part of the messiness of our conflict, you know. We love to think that we're good guys and bad guys, but it's just not that simple, you know. And no matter where you look at our conflict, you can figure out who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. But in reality, as you stand in all kinds of places, you see that there were good guys and bad guys all over the place.
A couple of points I'd like to make about the film. I would like to see an end to the terms two tribes, because we're not two tribes. The reality is that what would be known as the Nationalist Community now and the Unionist Community was set in enmity by a sovereign English monarchy going back into the 1500s, so that they didn't have to send their armies in, and the old colonial ploy, take one section of the community, give them a uniform, a few guns, and pay a packet at the end of the day. That's how you hold on to your colonies.
And the quote I use in the film from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, you know, if only there were bad people that we could separate ourselves from them, put them over there and wipe them out. But then Solzhenitsyn says, but the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And that's, you know, what we're trying to get across in many ways.
Having watched the film, I feel that it benefits that you kept that in, because you then give the counterbalance of the sadness and the hurt, and then that gives the impact to what he eventually did. Tell us a little bit more about what he actually did.
What, Eugene?
Eugene, the kind of reconciliation process that he went through.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I said at the launch, the premiere of the film, was that in many ways I think Eugene's mum was the hero of the film in a way, because he tells a story about on the night that his three brothers were killed, his father appealed for no retaliation, and then his mother she was a very devout Catholic woman, and she would light candles on her mantelpiece every night, you know, say a wee prayer for different people, for this person, and then she lit the last candle, and she said, this candle's for the men who killed my sons, you know, your brothers. And she did that every night for the next 30 years of her life. She lit a candle and prayed for the people who killed her sons, which I find that staggering, you know, absolutely staggering. And so in a way, that's not Eugene's story. You know, Eugene's story was confusion and going back and then facing beatings from the soldiers, and he was wrongly implicated in the King's Mill massacre. And so for him, it was a harder journey. You know, his story is not this nice little simple story of this bad thing happened and then I just loved all the people in return. No, it's not like that. It's, I was hurt and beaten, my brothers were killed, I don't know what's going on, but in the midst of it, he is very committed to truth and reconciliation. And so he's set up with Stephen Travers, who survived the Miami show band massacre, Alan McBride, whose wife was killed in the Shankill bomb, who's also in the film. They've set up an initiative called the Truth and Reconciliation Platform, where they go around and tell their stories in schools, churches, wherever they can get an audience. And usually there's about 4 of them, 2 probably roughly from each side, and they tell their story of what happened.
We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.